Back with you on Hitting Hard on Locked On Sports Atlanta. I am Jon Chuckery. Appreciate everybody being a part of the show. Head over to youtube.com. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta in your browser. Find the channel. Subscribe to it. Leave us a comment on the shows. Tell us what you think. Give us some feedback out there. Again, I always read all of the comments, so appreciate you being a part of our new growing show. Over 1,200 followers already, or subscribers, I should say, on YouTube. Really appreciate that. And follow me on my personal Twitter page. It is at JMCH316. I want to give you a name of somebody that could very much be the unsung hero for the Falcons defense this year, and that is Lorenzo Carter. Now, I know there's a lot of hype about Arnold Ebiketie and what he could be, and obviously he's a second-round pick, and frankly, he probably is the best pass rusher on this roster right now as we stand. I don't think there's a whole lot of doubt about that. But I am curious very much to see what Dean Pease can do with Lorenzo Carter. Now, look, Lorenzo Carter was part of that great Georgia Bulldogs defense in 2017 when they got to the national finals and lost to Alabama, and it was Lorenzo Carter and, Roquan Smith and all those guys. And Carter kind of had a little bit of his breakout year that final year at Georgia. It was a third-round pick, but he came up with he came up with a handful of sacks for Georgia and was a guy that, we were kind of waiting on at Georgia to finally kind of break out, and he did. And it's been sort of a mixed bag for him as far as what his NFL career has been. But over the end of the season last year, he really started to kind of get it cranked up as far as sacking the quarterback goes. And, for a team that is so deficient when it comes to sacking the quarterback, that there's no doubt that this is as bad a team as you can find in the NFL when it comes to sacking the quarterback. Even guys that can come in and be 4 or 5 sack guys feel like that they can be a win. Now, Carter last year ended up with 5 sacks for the Giants. That put him third on their team. But the thing I think that was interesting about Carter and what he did last year is, if you look at his stats, he really picked up all of his sacks in the last 4 games of the year. Now, I don't know why that is. I don't know what it was early in the season where he got no sacks, but he had 5 sacks in 4 games for the Giants. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, things started to click for Lorenzo Carter. He had 2 sacks against Dallas, a sack against Philly, sack against Chicago, and a sack against Washington. Now, those are some pretty good offensive lines, by the way. Dallas, Philly, Washington, those are some pretty good lines that he went up against. Obviously, divisional mates of theirs, but you've got some star power on those offensive lines, and he was able to find some production. So I don't know what it was that flipped and switched and things that made him all of a sudden start to break out and find a way to sack the quarterback, whether they used him differently in the scheme or whatever like that. I don't know what it is. But I think the Falcons brought him in for a reason. I think they looked at what he did at the end of the year. And again, we just talked about Arthur Smith and putting his hands on the offense and how we're going to find more touchdowns and this and the other. This feels like one of those situations where I'm going to be curious to see how Dean Pease makes this guy better. Dean Pease did some good things with Foye Oluokun last year, got him a nice big fat contract, right? They've done some good things with Michael Walker to get him developed and be a lot better. But I'm going to be curious. I think the guy that could be the unsung hero of the Falcons defense this year could be Lorenzo Carter. Now, I do think that Ebiketie is going to be the guy that ends up leading this team in sacks, and I think he's going to be the best pass rusher that they have, and he probably, again, is already the best pass rusher that is on this team. But if you're looking for a guy that could be a nice little compliment, or maybe a guy that if Ebiketie or Grady or whatever, if those guys start to get double teamed and those guys are trying to get taken out of plays, maybe this is a chance for Carter to thrive. And I know fans around Atlanta are excited about the idea of adding Georgia Bulldogs, right? Everybody wants to add these Georgia Bulldog players in the draft and free agency and this, that, and the other. I think this guy could be a really good fit for this team. And if he's allowed to sort of develop his pass rush ability, which we saw some flashes and glimpses of it in that 2017 season, then I'm hoping that he can find a way to have a breakout year. And who knows? I mean, I don't know what exactly his sack number is going to be. I don't know exactly what he can be in this Dean Pease defense. But if you're telling me that he can find a way to get to the quarterback and he can build off of what was the end of last year, they may have found themselves a gem. And look, there's a lot of guys that are getting second chance opportunities on this defense for the Atlanta Falcons, right? The kid that they brought in, was it Rashaan Evans, the linebacker out of Tennessee that they brought over, another former first round pick. Obviously, Casey Hayward's a guy that they add in the secondary that, well, maybe not a second chance, but he's coming into a good situation for him where he can start and be productive, and he's got a good complement on the other side. And there's been a lot of talk about Hayward being the unsung guy, and I get that. He's been a very good player and probably underrated through his career where he had a couple of second team, all NFL, spots, in earlier in his career. But I think that Carter might be that guy, that he may be that guy that really benefits. There's always that second guy, right? And I'll use an example that's going to make Falcons fans make their head blow. Remember when Ray Edwards came over to the Falcons? Well, how did he build his reputation? Well, Jared Allen was such a dominant pass rusher that Ray Edwards did a lot of cleaning up, right? Trying to double team, triple team, whatever, Jared Allen and take him out, one of the great pass rushers in the history of the NFL. A guy like Ray Edwards benefited. And say what you will about what he was or this, that, and the other, but he did put up numbers when he was with Minnesota. And he was a sack guy in Minnesota. Don't know that it's exactly that situation because I don't know that Ebikete's about to be Jared Allen, and I don't know that Carter's a guy who can get you 10 sacks. But boy, if you told me that Lorenzo Carter could find a way in this defense to put up 7 or 8 sacks this year, how huge would that be? We talk about trying to find a way to get to 40 sacks, which is my number for a team. If you can find your way to 40 sacks in the NFL, you have a really good chance to be a playoff team. A pretty good playoff defense will record 40 sacks. So how do I get 22 more? That may be out of the question, and that may be pie in the sky. I get that. But if we're trying to, move that needle in the right direction from 18, which we assume that it can't be worse than 18, right? There's no way that they'll be worse than 18 sacks. But if you can find a way to maybe get up in the 30s and this, that, and the other, I think Carter plays a big role in all of that. So I think when you look at this defense and the improvement on the defensive line, both with what they did with Carter, obviously re-signing Grady and keeping him around here for the long term, and then obviously drafting Ebiketie in the second round, I think you're starting to see the blueprint a little bit. And it doesn't mean that you can't add more. There are still some guys out there in free agency that I think the Falcons should be very interested in looking at, as they're going to have a little bit of cash freed up. And then again, there's always June 1st cuts. You always have somebody who is going to get cut after June 1st that we didn't expect, or somebody, that's released that you just, kind of surprised by, that maybe was making some big money and has to go to a team for a 1-year show me deal. And his teams have already kind of set their roster. I mean, look at how the Saints just keep adding players and they keep finding money when it's not there. Maybe the Falcons get lucky on somebody like that. But I want you to keep your eyes on Lorenzo Carter this year. If there's one guy that I want to watch and see, I want to see Ebiketie. I think he's going to lead the team in sacks. And I think he has a chance to certainly set the Falcons rookie sack record. We talked about that last week. I think he can definitely do that. Whether he does or does not, or whatever like that, you never know with rookie pass rushers. But Carter could be that guy, given what he did at the end of last year, and Dean Pease gets his hands on him, that could be that unsung hero of the Atlanta Falcons defense. All right, when we get back, when exactly do we start to be concerned about the Atlanta Braves? I need some kind of tangible measurement on it. That's up next. Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.